First, it kind of started with like the whole barbecue chicken pizza. You know, you go to
Right.
the local pizzerias in your neighborhood, and you can find like the barbecue chicken pizza, right? So it was like, okay, there's a
Which I
pizza with
just want to
barbecue.
say for the record, I never got. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
I
want
know.
I don't. I'm a purist. I either want my pizza like New York by the slice pizza, like that, or I want like my Italian, pizzaiola pizza. But
Totally. I don't.
I don't want chicken on it.
Yeah, I don't want chicken on it either. It's funny because, like, we'll go to my local pizzeria, me and my two sons, and like, Dad, can we get the chicken Caesar pizza? I'm like,
Sure, go ahead.
Nikkei cuisine is the story behind it is what kind of what it is, right? It represents migration, adaptation, and the blending of two distinct cultures into something completely unique, right? Very distinct, right? Peruvian and Japanese, like the indigenous.
Hey everyone, it's your girl Nycci Nellis with Industry Night, the show that takes you on the deep dive of what is actually happening in the hospitality industry, the trends, the people, the food driving it all forward. So I'm home today. Sometimes I'm out and about and record on location, but today I'm home. I'm surrounded by my dogs, who you will no doubt hear, and all my plants, but all my children are grown and gone. But anyway, we are talking about a pretty important story right now in the food space. It's the rise of Peruvian cuisine. Now, over the last 2 decades, Peru has gone through this like explosive transformation, turning Lima into one of the most undisputed global gastronomic capitals. I mean, that success all culminated in back to back historic wins at the World's 50 Best Restaurant Awards. Peru is just not a regional star, right? So, who better to talk about this than my guest today, Erik Ramirez? He's the chef behind some of the most talked about Peruvian and Nikkei restaurants in New York. He's currently at the helm of Papasan in Hudson Yards, which is a super sexy location. But he spent his early career mastering French and American fine dining, including some time at 11 Madison Park, before a trip to Lima changed everything. Along the way, he picked up a James Beard nod, as one does. He was a Met Gala menu credit, which I need more information on because I'm desperate to go to the Met Gala one day. But he has a reputation as one of the leading voices bridging Lima's avant-garde food scene with New York dining culture. So we're also going to get into his story that is still being written, the restaurant openings, the restaurant closings, the reconfiguring, and how the state of the hospitality industry plays into all of that. Please welcome with me, fellow New Jerseyan, Chef Erik Ramirez. Hey, Chef, how are you?
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me. Excited to chat.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to it. So let's start at the beginning. Well, I'm going to start in the middle and then we'll get to the beginning. You spent the first decade of your career, French and American fine dining, 11 Madison Park. Like, what was the initial thing that turned you on to cooking, to be a chef?
When I was younger, it came there was like a certain point in time where I needed to figure out what to do with my life. You know
Hmm.
that always that question from your parents, like, "Hey, what are you gonna do?"
Right.
And I've always been influenced, not influenced, but like food has always been such a main, like ingredient in my life. With my mom, my uncle, my grandmother, like everything was always revolved around food, and and I think my uncle, like my mom's brother, is the one that he wasn't a trained chef by any means, but he definitely had fun cooking and he made it something that was enjoyable, and I think I got that from him. So then I decided.
Can I ask, like, sometimes you have a family member who's like, everybody goes to his house and he's the one who's cooking, or he comes into your mom's house and he takes over the kitchen. Like, was he that kind of guy?
He was not that kind of guy because he lived in the most random place. He ended up in Grand Isle, Louisiana. It's like
Okay.
little. strip. You got to take a bridge to get there. They do like the fishing rodeo. It used to be like supposedly like a old school like mafia meeting place. It's
Okay.
very like Creole Cajun, like near the beach. And so he ended up there. And one summer, I went to go stay with him. My mom was like, "You need to get out of here. You're getting in a little too much trouble. You're gonna go spend some time with your uncle." And so I went down there for the summer. I got a job there, and which was a great. It was a great experience. It was during the fishing rodeo too. But either way, so he did a lot of cooking, baking, breads, and like making like gumbo, jambalaya, etouffee. Like he
Oh,
just,
wow.
and I didn't know much. Like I didn't know it was like that, until and it was always like a thing, it wasn't just like cooking out of necessity and like, hey, we have to eat food. It's like, hey, I'm gonna run to the market, I'm gonna get these shrimp. The shrimp just came in, and like making the roux and everything, and like it was like a thing, and I kind of like it piqued my interest. So when I got back, I was like, you know what? Let me maybe cooking, like maybe this cooking thing could be a thing.
Can I just ask a question without going down a rabbit hole? But you said it three times, and I don't know what it is. What is a fish rodeo?
Fishing rodeo. So
Oh,
in that
fishing
part of
rodeo.
Louisiana, a lot of people go for what's called the fishing rodeo, and it's a big fishing competition. And you got
Oh,
to catch
okay.
different sizes of fish and weights and everything, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, I will Google that. I will learn more about fishing rodeo. That was a new one for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so he really like gets your juices flowing. Do you decide to go get culinary training? Do you decide to work in a kitchen? Like how did you feed that fire?
Yeah, so I decided to go to culinary school. I went to the Art Institute of Philadelphia. I
Oh,
had some
okay.
friends. I had some friends that moved to Philly. So I was like, you know what? Let me go out there. And it was far enough, but also close enough to home. So um, it worked
Which
itself
part
out.
of Jersey are you from? Because I'm from northern Jersey.
I'm from northern New Jersey, Passaic County. I grew up in Passaic,
Okay,
New Jersey, and then I moved to Clifton. Was there for a bit, and then from Clifton, I moved to Passaic. Sorry, I
got you.
moved to Philadelphia.
I grew up in Morris County, like the
Okay.
Morristown area, and but my whole family is in Philly now, like everybody. So I get it. Like it's a natural. You either go
Yeah,
to the New York, you either go to the big city or you go to the other city. Like that's like New Jersey sort of flow. You know what I mean?
totally. Yeah, I found a school. The Art Institute was pretty affordable at the time,
Hmm.
and it was, yeah, it was like far enough but close enough. Where it's like, hey, I'm leaving, and so I went there. It was it was actually short lived. I'm not like the super studious type, but I was there for like it was an 18-month program. I was probably there for like maybe the 6 7 months. Ended up getting a job at a restaurant called London Grill, and that was great. And then got a job at a restaurant called Novelty in Old City, and was there for 3 years. And I think that's kind of what really set it off. I ended up working with a lot of great people that had great experience working at the top restaurants in Philly at that time. And
I mean,
I was,
Philly is an amazing food city, like an amazing food city.
it is. It's a sleeper. Not too many people, it's like, and now there's like tons of great restaurants. Back then you had like five that were the top ones. Um, So yeah, I got really consumed by working in the restaurant, like the whole nightlife too. That element of like getting out late and like you're building friendships and you're going out for drinks. It was like a whole thing for me, and got really consumed by it. And I was just like, you know what? I'd rather just focus on this. So I stopped going to school because I was trying to balance both, paying for school through working, and I wanted to work more, but I couldn't because I had to dedicate time to school, and I just felt like I was gaining so much more than work than I was gaining so much more working at the restaurant than the school. And I'm not saying like, hey, for all the kids listening and stuff, like go to school and get an education, right? Because it's important. You
Right.
get you get like the base and the foundation of what cooking is. But either way, I made that decision, and I ended up staying there for 3 years. And I think that was the restaurant that was like the catalyst for like, okay, this is something I really, really enjoy. I think I can be pretty good at it. And then that's how things just started kind of evolving from there. So 3 years there, worked at a few other restaurants in Philly, and then ended up moving to New York. Um, yeah, and I
Was New
got a
York the goal? Like, did you want to be in New York? Were you like,
yeah,
the way to show that I'm doing it is being in the city?
yeah. My girlfriend at the time, we were talking, and she was in the fashion world, and where else to be in the fashion world would be New York. So,
In New
and
York.
same for me. And I was like, you know what, like could be a good opportunity to explore what's going on over there and learn some more. So we moved to New York, and I was closer to home. I was like an hour, 45 minutes away, from the city to home. And so yeah, I started cooking there, and I got a job at a restaurant called Frederick's Madison. It was like a French bistro in a theater across the street from the Plaza Hotel, I think it was.
Okay.
Um, and the chef there was one of my chefs in Philadelphia. So I worked at a restaurant called West Washington Square, which was like a Marcus Samuelson restaurant. And a lot of his chefs that worked at Aquavie went to open that place. And, I was there and I made connections and friends. So when one of them found out I was moving to New York, I went to go work for him. So then I started there, worked there for a bit. And then after that, I got the opportunity to work at 11 Madison Park.
Which must have been, I mean, people who get into working in 11 Madison Park, it's not just so much what you learn about, my understanding is, having not worked there, is it's not just about technique but it's about the ballet because that place is an absolute, it's all choreographed. Like I feel like every night, everything they're doing is completely choreographed. And when you watch it, like as an outsider watching it, who has an understanding of the business and execution, it's so it seems so seamless, and making that the pretend versus what's really happening, that's the art of a restaurant like 11 Madison Park.
Absolutely. Like, I didn't necessarily know what I was getting myself into. Because when I started there, I started maybe like 6 months after Daniel Hum started. And when I was doing research of like going, like what place I wanted to work at next, at that time, Danielle was this place that everybody wanted to work at. And my chef at the time worked there, or not at the time worked there, but has worked there. And he was like, look, I can get you in. I was like, great. But then I ended up doing a trail at 11 Madison Park, and I was just really like, okay, and I was never exposed to like those styles of kitchens yet. So I guess 11 Madison Park happened first because I went there first, and I was just like, whoa, this is really different from what I'm used to. And yeah, I spent 3 years there, and I finished as a sous chef, and that really changed my perspective on cooking. It was, like you said, like the ballet, the attention to detail, right? The care that you would take, you know, processing different vegetables and how to cook them in so many different ways. It was a lot of technique, a lot of technical cooking, like it really it really sharpened my skills. It really sharpened like my outlook on food, on how to approach certain things and look at different things. Uh, so yeah, it
But
was a
also, don't you think the respect, like you're explaining the technique and respect for the product and for what wound up on the plate, but there's this overall respect of hospitality, and the guest experience that I think is not just about what's on the plate as well. I mean, they're just, I'm not saying they're perfect by any stretch, but there is a well-roundedness to to all of it, which I think
absolutely.
that must have been like grad school for you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like you said, it's the respect of the craft, right? It's every element in that restaurant is approached at like with the highest level of respect, right? And you're executing at a very like high level, like respect, like kind of like, you're taking care, right? You have respect for what you're doing, and it just really shows. Not that like, and I'm not trying to take away from like smaller restaurants, because the approach is the same. It's just, it's just at a higher level, right? There's no room for those, slips or mistakes, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. Yeah.
Well, no, absolutely. Listen, I think especially when I think of restaurants in New York, but even here in DC or Chicago or LA or wherever you are, there is a vibe to the restaurant, right? So we know what 11 Madison Park's vibe is. But when you go to, your restaurant or a bustling brasserie or whatever, like that vibe is what's coming from the kitchen, what's coming from the front of the house. Like everybody's on, when it works and it works well, everybody's on the same page because everybody's like, yeah, this is it. This is when the diner comes in, the people who pay to keep us afloat, right? When they come in, this is what they're supposed to feel. This is what the food's supposed to taste like. This is how they're emotionally supposed to feel. People who do it successfully, like you just, that's why like places, I don't know, I think I was just at Le Veau d'Or and I'm like, they know exactly how I'm supposed to feel. Like while I was there, I was like, yeah, I see what you all are doing. I get
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Seasoned
um,
veterans. It's and
yes,
that leads to like the team element, right? It's like everybody has to be on board and have like the same vision, and like they need to they need to drink the juice, and kind of
yes.
want to like, excel and be at that level. And that's why everything sings, and like just works so seamlessly and it's and you kind of leave feeling some kind of way, like you just explained, it's like they knew exactly how I was supposed to feel, you know?
So how did you take that education and when were you like, okay, I'm ready to do my own thing? And what was the decision um to think back to your Peruvian heritage? Because you're first generation?
I'm first generation, yeah. Both my
Okay.
parents migrated from Peru. So after 11 Madison Park, I worked at another restaurant. It was a little French bistro called Fanny's in Williamsburg. That was like my first executive chef job. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, and that was short lived. That was a little too intense, a little too kind of like it was a bistro, and I was approaching it like if I was at 11 Madison Park. So it didn't click. It didn't work out. So while I was there, I was like, okay, what am I gonna do next? Like maybe I'm not ready to be an executive chef, right? Maybe I need like kind of get back into like, do I want to be a fine dining chef or do I want to be somebody that is more of like, like the neo bistro, the modern American or the modern Peruvian kind of, you know. And so I was kind of thinking like what to do. And then I had a friend reach out to me and he was like, "Hey, I hear you're looking for." Oh, actually, after that, I went to Irving Mill
Oh,
with one of
okay.
with one of the sous chefs from 11 Madison Park. I was a chef de cuisine there for a few years. That was a great spot. A lot of charcuterie. Like pig butchery.
What
You know,
is this like 2010, 2015, like 20,
yeah,
like I'm
I would
thinking like the
say,
charcuterie, like when everybody was making their own charcuterie, like 2012-ish.
yep,
Do you know what I mean?
exactly. When there was like in the restaurant Cannibal kind of. Remember Cannibal? So the chef from Cannibal left and did Irving Mill, and that's kind of I ended up
Okay.
there with him. Um, so then I did that. Great relationship. Till this day, I still speak to the owners. They're great people. And then that's when a friend reached out and was like, "Hey, like, there's this opportunity. I don't know if you're interested, but it's Nuevo Latino, and it was a Douglas Rodriguez restaurant that was opening up in the Flatiron." I'm like, oh, that might be kind of cool because I worked at a Douglas Rodriguez restaurant in Philly called Alma de Cuba, and that's
Oh,
when
yeah.
Jose Garces was the chef there. So I was like, okay, this is great. Like, okay, there's a connection here, maybe, like, and I'm like, I don't know too much about the whole Latino kind of thing, and I'm just like, I'll talk to the chef. So I ended up talking to the chef. His name's Adam Shop, who has a bunch of little places in the theater district right now.
Okay.
We hit it off. And I was like, I really like this guy. I think I can learn something from him. So we ended up opening what was called Nuella. Um, Nuella was short lived, it didn't do that well. Uh,
Okay.
so then after 2 years there, uh,
So I'm just sort of curious, like, so it doesn't do well. Is it because, is it because of business or because of food? Like, what, like, as you reflect, I'm just sort of curious.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things, right? Business. It was on a weird block. It was on 24th between Madison and Sixth, right down the street from the park. The decor was a little. It wasn't a nice looking place, in my opinion. You know,
Okay.
and it was really big. It used to be the Sapa space. I don't know if you remember Sapa.
Sapa, I don't remember.
Yeah. So it was that space. It was just really big, hard to fill, and so it was a combination of things. Um, so yeah,
So
business
let's
wise.
move up. Let's move up because I want to get to like you partnering with Juan and like what was it about Llama Inn where you were like, this is what we want to do? What was the inspiration for that?
Okay, so real quick, after Nuella, the owners were Colombian family. They took me in, like they really treated me like family. They're like, "Hey, you're Peruvian. Let's open a Peruvian restaurant." I'm like, I don't know much about Peruvian cuisine. Like, it's in you. You can cook really well. You can do it. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, like da da da. And he was like, go to Peru for about a month. I went to Peru for a month, and like my mind was blown, right? Because I visited Peru often as a child, but I always ate like my grandmother cook or like the street food, just like the very traditional, like like homey food. I never looked at it as like a cuisine that I wanted to cook. And then when I went at that time, I went to all like top restaurants, and I was just like blown away by the flavor
Right.
profile, by the ingredients, and by the way they were cooking. They were cooking like you would cook in New York at the high level restaurants, just using Peruvian ingredients and flavor. So I was just like, wow, this is really awesome.
And is this the point where like Nikkei is really taking over some of the finer Peruvian restaurants?
I at that time I don't think so. Nikkei's been around for a long
Long
time.
time. I mean, is
Yeah,
it Nobu was one of the first, right?
correct.
Especially to bring
Yeah.
it to the States.
Yeah, it's been around for a very long time, but at that time was it as popular as it is now with like the restaurant Milo? Not yet. Milo was still kind of in its beginning stages and starting to develop its name in the cuisine, I think. But he was known at the time, but not at the level of like what it is now, you know?
Sure.
So then, yeah, I was like, this is great. Let's do it. So I came back, and that's kind of when Raimi started. And we partnered up with a good friend of mine now to this day. His name's Jaime Pisake, who's on the list of the best restaurants. He has Maita. He was like the consulting chef. So that was kind of like the base. That's kind of where I learned a lot, right? We opened it up together, and then he ended up transitioning out. I ended up becoming the executive chef. And I was there for quite a while, and that's kind of where I learned the basis of like what Peruvian cuisine was, like the foundation.
And what is, for people who don't know, what is the foundation of Peruvian cuisine?
So what I learned there were what we would call like the sofritos, like the traditional cooking that you can find a lot in Peru. Like there's like dishes that you find everywhere, and then based on like regions, there's dishes that you find in those regions. It was more of like what we call like the comida criolla, which is the food that you can find everywhere in Peru. It was like the more popular dishes, right? What you find here. If you go to a Peruvian restaurant, the more traditional ones, they have a lot of the same things. So it was that, right? It was exploring that, understanding the history, the culture, the cuisine. Um, and then that's when the jump what happened with Llama Inn.
Okay.
Uh, I met Juan through LinkedIn. I never checked LinkedIn ever. I happened to check it. I don't know why. And there was a message from him. He's like, "Hey, I really like what you do at Rhyme. Let's chat. Like I have an idea for a Peruvian restaurant." I was like, "Cool." At the time I didn't want to leave because I was pretty happy. I was kind of doing what I was doing. I was surrounded by great people, and I was learning a lot. And like I just wanted to continue that. But spoke to Juan, had a couple meetings. I had this idea of what I wanted to do. It wasn't what Rhyme was because it was a little more traditional. I wanted to kind of take it to the next level, kind of incorporate more of the things that I've learned and the technique that I've learned and the experience that I gained at working, at French, American restaurants and wanted to incorporate all that. And that's how kind of Llama Inn came to be, like that was the jump to kind of creating my own path and my own idea of like what Peruvian cuisine is. And that's kind of how, like, that's how it started, right? Like, the idea was like to kind of create a restaurant at that time that was like familiar, right? Like, it was like the places that people would go visit, like the cool restaurants at the time, like the modern American ones, and like they played the pop music, they had the cool like vibe, it looked good in there, and have it be Peruvian, right? So it was like approachable and accessible and like relatable, but it was Peruvian cuisine, right? Like, so it's like you go into somewhere that you understand, and but I'm introducing like like new flavors, right? For example, like the beet salad, right? Beet goat cheese. Everybody knows what that is. So I did beet goat cheese, but I put like a Peruvian fruit, or like I made a pesto with like Peruvian mint. So that was great, right?
How hard is was it when you opened? Because I mean, we kind of still have a global economy, but how hard was it to get these like interesting ingredients from Peru? Like I read somewhere that you were growing, and I hope I say this right. Is it wakati, the herb?
Wakatai.
What I say it?
Wakatai. Wa-
Wakatai,
yeah, exactly.
wakatai.
Wakatai.
So like you were growing it yourself, like on your rooftop or something. Um, I mean, how hard is it even today to get some of these, because I was in Medellin last year and they put a bowl of different fruits in front of us. And I was like, what are these? Like it's so hard to believe because when you walk into a grocery store here, we're surrounded by such abundance of fruit and vegetables and things. It's so hard to believe that yes, of course, like regionally there are whole subcultures of fruits and vegetables that we never see or taste because they're just not grown here, period, end of story.
Yeah, it's difficult. We can't get the same ingredients that you can, like the fresh ingredients that you could get in Peru, right? We get a lot of everything either comes frozen or dried, right? Like for like our ajis, like our chilies that we use, right? Like three primary ones are ají amarillo, ají rocoto, and ají panca. Panca comes dried, but the amarillo and the rocoto, they come in, you can get them fresh frozen, and then you process them yourself. Depending on the season, you can find certain fruits that are similar to what you can find in Peru. And depending on the season, you can find certain ajis, chilies, that you can find in Peru, like the ají amarillo, for example. You can find that at the Union Square Market. But that's as far as it goes. Wakata we were growing on our roof. We ended up ordering from a company that started growing it for us. So the stuff that we used on the roof was more for garnishes, and the stuff we
What's
would.
the flavor profile of that? I'm just curious.
It's a mix between mint and oregano. It's interesting. It's very unique, and we used it in a lot of things because we were able to get it fresh. So and that's like the beauty of like being in New York City, right? It's like you have to adapt, right? And utilize what you find here, right? So, and that was kind of the idea behind Llama Inn. You didn't want to like pigeonhole yourself and just cook traditional Peruvian cuisine because, it's limited because you don't have that many ingredients. So then that's how this kind of like modern kind of take came to be. Is so we can use what we have here in New York. We can use the seasons, the culture, the art, the freedom of interpretation, and combine that with Peruvian cuisine. The traditions, the flavor profiles, the culture, and that's kind of how we kind of brought that's how Llama Inn came to be, right? That
So
was that
now
mix.
Llama Inn has been recon, reconcepted.
Yes, that's my partner's solo project. That's called Cafe Bar JF. Yeah. Or like my partner at Papasan. Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then let's talk about the creation of Papasan because what you're doing there, first of all, you're in a very sexy location at Hudson Yards.
Mhm.
Um, let's talk about the concept and what you're executing there.
Yeah, so Papasan is Nikkei
Mhm.
cuisine. And
Can you, for those who don't understand Nikkei, can you sort of break it down a little bit?
yes, absolutely. So Nikkei cuisine is, the story behind it is what it is, right? It represents migration, adaptation, and the blending of two distinct cultures into something completely unique, right? Very distinct, right? Peruvian and Japanese, like the indigenous, right? And at that time, you also had, the influence of the Spanish and the African, right? So kind of those two things came to be out of necessity, right? Because of the migration. And then it's yeah, so it's like it's a cuisine built on like necessity and respect, right? And like, like
It's a cuisine kind of based on immigration,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, it's about immigrants wanting their food, sort of like what you're talking about, what you're already doing in New York, which is you're doing Peruvian cuisine, but sometimes you can't find what you would use. And I mean, Italians did this, Irish did, like everybody who goes someplace new wants something that tastes like home. So they work with what they have, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is, and it's the marrying of like, the Japanese precision with like Peruvian ingredients and culture and tradition, and that's what Nikkei cuisine is.
And
Um,
how does it present itself at Papasan?
so so Papasan is what we call a Peruvian izakaya, right? And it's Nikkei, but like a version that we created in a way because we're in New York and we're not in Peru. So we kind of, like it started at Llama because that was like our first Nikkei restaurant. That was my first like jump into Nikkei. And that was a little more, sophisticated, a little more refined, 3 stars New York Times. And then Papasan was going to be more like the casual version, right? Small plates, a very like boisterous place that you can meet up with friends. It's izakaya, right? A place that you can drink and have little small plates. And that was the angle, and that's what we did, and it was like you can find, and as long as there's a connection, right? As long as like you have a dish and it's connected to New York, it's connected to Japan, and it's connected to Peru, right? And then we look at our food that way, right? There has to be a representation of those three ingredients, right? Because
Okay.
it's like you have Peruvian and Japanese, okay, and you have that in Peru, and you have that here, right? But we're also, New York is like the canvas, right? It's like the playing field. So we have that element too that we want to incorporate, and also like it's all the people that we have that have worked with me in the past, that have different cultures. So also like that element of like who they are, and they put a little bit of what we do at Papasan. My chef de cuisine is Korean, so there's Korean ingredients. My executive sous is from Tennessee, right? So it's like there's like this southern element, and like you can find, for example, polenta, or like so there's like, and that could also be Italian, but like like it's there's a little bit of everybody, right? But the key players are there needs to be an element of New York, Peru, and Japan.
Is that how I think I read about your eel pizza that everybody's obsessed with? Is that how that came to be?
Totally, right? So it's like the eel pizza, the idea was, first it kind of started with like the whole barbecue chicken pizza. Like you go to
Right.
the local pizzerias in your neighborhood and you can find like the barbecue chicken pizza, right? So it was like, okay, there's a
Which I
pizza with
just want to
barbecue.
say for the record, I never got. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
and I
want
know
I don't. I'm a purist. I either want my pizza like New York by the slice pizza, like that, or I want like my Italian, pizzaiola pizza. But
totally.
I don't want chicken on it.
Yeah, I don't want chicken on it either. It's funny because like, we'll go to my local pizzeria, me and my two sons, and like, Dad, can we get the chicken Caesar pizza? I'm like,
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
no, you don't want to get that. Just get pepperoni or just regular cheese, But
It's
yeah,
like when somebody wants like you go into a bagel place and it's like a jalapeno cheddar cheese bagel and somebody wants to put like strawberry cream cheese. I'm just like, no.
yeah, no,
No.
yeah,
That's not
agree,
a bagel. That is not cream cheese. Like I'm a purist.
agree, agree.
I don't like to yuck other people's yums. I'm like, fine, if that's what you want, go ahead, but don't give it to
It's
me. That's
so
all.
funny you said that because my oldest says that. Dad, don't yuck my yum. I'm like, all right, bud, you want chicken Caesar? Go ahead.
Have at
Um,
it. I
Yeah.
will judge you. I will still judge you.
So the idea was like a barbecue pizza, right? And it's
Uh-huh.
like, what is so New York, and so like
Pizza.
exactly, it's so connected to
Uh-huh.
this city, and it's like, and it's so relatable, and people know what it is. So we're like, okay, this is be a really good opportunity to do an eel pizza, right? People shy away from eel, so it's like, okay, you see
But
it.
is it like the eel like you get on is it the eel that you get like on sushi? Because
Yeah,
to
it's the
me that eel is about the sauce. Like
exactly.
what people love about eel is that sauce.
Exactly, and that's unagi, right? That's the barbecue
Yes.
eel, right? So then
Right.
that's kind of where the barbecue element came in, and we're like,
Mm,
okay, how do we make it Japanese? Then it's the eel. All right, so the
right.
unagi, right? So then it's like, okay, we're marrying, like, we're connecting New York to Japan, and like we're kind of introducing something that's familiar and people get, while kind of slipping in the eel, right, and making people try it, and it's something different. You don't really find it in New York, right? And then we added mozzarella, pecorino, scallion, sesame. We made a chili oil with a Peruvian chili and togarashi, so it's spicy, right? So there's that element of like a Peruvian ingredient, and that's how it came to be. Like, so what's like, yeah, I think, like, I think something that's important to say, it's like, what makes Peruvian cuisine, right? And I think it's two main factors. It's the cultural influences, right? You have the Chinese that has their own cuisine called chifa. You have the
Right.
indigenous, the Spanish and the African, that have their own cuisine called criollo. You have the Nikkei, which is the Peruvian Japanese. There's a little Italian in there, which is called bachiche, and a little German. And so it's the cultural influences, and coupled with that is the biodiversity, right? You have coast, mountains, the Andes,
Right.
forest, rainforest, the Amazon, and then you have the south, which is all desert. So you have all these different microclimates with all these amazing ingredients, and that together is what makes Peruvian cuisine. Like, my grandmother is half Japanese, half Peruvian. Like, on my dad's side, 100% Peruvian. On my mother's side, my mother is half Italian and half Peruvian Japanese. So my grandma
Okay.
half Japanese, and my grandfather grew up in Italy to Italian parents who migrated from Italy to Peru. My first language growing up was Spanish and Italian. So it's like I am a good representation of what Peruvian cuisine is, and the
Yes.
migration from different parts of the world. So that's why it's so special to me, and I feel like I have like this misconception that it's just like Peruvian chicken with green sauce and ceviche. It's so much more deeper than that.
Well, I mean, I think, and you may disagree with me, but I think, it's no different than, let's say, Chinese food or Thai food or Vietnamese food or even, I mean, food from anywhere, Italian food. You know, I think we usually start with the home cooking, the
Absolutely. Yeah.
casual, right? I use Chinese food as an example all the time because, everybody grows up with a Chinese restaurant on the corner. No matter where you live in this country, in the United States, like even or Europe or anywhere, there's a Chinese food takeout place on everybody's corner that you grow up with. It's cheap and it's, your Chinese food. Like that's what Americanized Chinese food. But then, the first time somebody opens up like a finer dining, more upscale Chinese food, everybody is like, this is not what I know visually. This is not what I know flavor profile, and it's not what I know on the wallet. And I think there's been such a cultural shift in the last 30 years to understand that all cuisines come in all shapes and sizes and all price ranges, right? Like nothing is stuck in any one place.
Totally. I agree 100%. It's like, and that's kind of like, that's how things evolve, because you have people, or like, like, like your parents migrated from somewhere, right? And you fall into the world of culinary, and you start cooking, and you have that exposure to like something that you grew up with, but also growing up somewhere different, and like you can explore those things and learn more about it and try to like, show what's out there, like what is more than what people think it is, like
Well, also like your story, you had a rich childhood filled with delicious foods, but that wasn't what you wanted to share when you started cooking. You sort of came back to it and then expanded on it, which I mean, is so because we should never sit idle, right? There's always more to do.
there's always
On
more.
that note, what are you doing? What else is coming up for you? Like, what do we see for the rest of 2026 or maybe into 2027?
So right now I'm focusing on Papasan, and
Hmm.
I have a couple other things in the works. I'm currently looking at different locations. I want to open up a sandwich place. I had a place in the West Village called Yamita. It was on Carmine. It was a sandwich place. Short-lived. COVID happened and kind of things just got really difficult after that. So I'd like to do a version of that. And because there's big sandwich culture in Peru, and I think their sandwiches are pretty delicious, and it'll be something different from what you can typically find sandwich wise here in New York. You have a lot of the same. Um, and yeah, that's something that I'm exploring. And at some point I want to give it some time. I'd like to open another Peruvian restaurant. I'm also kind of looking at spaces for that, but I'm being very calculated about like location and price. Um, and I want the time to kind of think what is like the new version of it, right? It's like what is like the 2.0 of Peruvian cuisine, right? I did it at Llama Inn and Llama San, and like do I continue down that path, or do I kind of go the more traditional route and do like a version of that, just execute it really well in like a really cool setting, right? It's just like I'm trying to like think of like what is the next step, but the goal is to open another Peruvian restaurant and have a little sandwich place. Yeah.
Okay. That's so exciting. Well, we'll look forward to that. And I can't wait. I'm going to be in the city in a couple weeks. I can't wait to come and check out what you're doing.
Please, from the Papa sign.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can't wait. Okay. Let's do a little rapid fire.
Okay.
Let me look at my notes here. Let's see what I want for you. Uh, Pisco sour or classic martini?
Oof, pisco sour, 100%. I do
Okay.
not like martinis.
I don't drink
I,
them either.
yeah, I don't drink much, but I just can't do spiritus, heavy, boozy drinks. I'm more of a pisco sour, margarita. Like I need sweet, fruity, and sour. Yeah.
Totally understand. I don't need sweet, but for me, I don't understand. Like when I go out with girlfriends and they're all getting martinis, I'm like, aren't you all going to be drunk? Like, I just don't know how people drink
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Like, the farthest I go would be a Negroni, and I like a good like rum Negroni, but that's it. Like I don't go anything. I can't do that.
Okay, good. All right. And one dish from your childhood that you would love to recreate.
One dish from my childhood that I love to recreate. Um, Arroz con pollo, like a green rice kind of chicken thing. That's like that is home for me. That is nostalgia for me. That kind of hits the soul for me. I make it till this day for my kids. That is the one dish that if I had to feed somebody in my home, that is the thing that I always make.
Okay, good. Hey, I don't normally do this, but would you maybe share your recipe for that? Would you be
Totally.
amenable?
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you do that and we can put that in the show notes? That would be amazing. And I'll do something on the Soch with that. Speaking of the Soch, tell everybody please where they can find you on the Insta or online. Like where's the best place to stay in touch with everything you're doing?
So, Papasan NYC is our Instagram handle. My personal handle is Llama Eric. Um, I
With a
can do
K.
Eric with a
Eric with a
K.
K.
Yes, Eric with a K, Erik. So it's Llama, Llama underscore Eric, Erik. I can definitely do a much better job on my personal handle on social media, but
Couldn't
that's
we
where I'm
all?
at. Yeah, and then we have a TikTok that it's Papasan NYC. and that's it. And there's a Facebook one as well. Yeah, which is
Okay, so
Papasan.
you're on all the things. All right,
Right.
great. Well, listen, I really appreciate you sharing your story today. Like, I think it's a really like you did not go on a generic path to get to where you are, and it's so interesting to hear about all the different people that either inspired you, like your uncle, or who you know networked you, put you in touch with the right people, and got you to that next stage in your life. And I wasn't joking. I'm coming to Papasan when I'm in the city in a couple weeks. And thank you for offering to share your recipe as well. So, for those of you who are listening, if you're in New York, go to Papasan because it sounds delicious, and keep your eye on what Chef Ramirez is doing because obviously he's doing a lot. I'm very interested in that sandwich place. So to everyone watching, thank you so much for spending time with us today. If you haven't already, make sure you follow the show on all your podcast platforms. Make sure you're clicking subscribe on YouTube. You follow me at NYCCINELLIS on all the things, but especially on the Insta, because that's where I'm doing the most, even though I know I need to be on TikTok, but it's so overwhelming. Oh my God. Anyway, thank you all for joining me today. Chef, thank you for your time. Everybody, be safe out there and have a delicious week.
Produced by Heartcast Media.